Let's talk about Fight Camp. Which fights in particular did you rate? Which ones did you like looking back?
Well, Fight Camp looked amazing. First of all, obviously, I thought I was going to go a few times and it never came off, but looked amazing. I've heard great things about it. You know, the production quality was great. As for the fights, I think a lot of the fights was good. It was evenly matched. It was quite competitive. You got the odd mismatch. You know, you got Chris Bill and Smith beating up a light heavyweight, which weren't the most competitive thing in the world. You know, the odd other fight that I thought, well, that's not a great matchup. But when you've got the likes of Harper-Jonas, the first all British women world title fight, and it was a 5-star matchup. It was absolutely fantastic. Eggington Cheeseman was great. Wyatt Povetkin, how dramatic was that? Taylor-Persoon again, another great fight. Then you had the likes of Donovan Barrett. Could sit here all day and go through all of them. Lots of great fights. And what made it so good for me was, out of the 25 fights there was, like we say, 15, 20 of them was either competitive on paper or the competitive on the night. And what more can you ask for?
You mentioned Harper-Jonas. Obviously, we don't have time today to touch on every single one of the post-lockdown shows, but let's touch upon Harper-Jonas. Obviously, Terry Harper from your neck of the woods. How did you see that fight? A lot of people thought it was, well, a lot of people, myself included, had Tasha Jonas winning that fight.
Yeah, Terry's a good friend of mine. I like Terry, but I thought she got beat. I thought it was a great fight. Women's boxing's flying at the minute. Taylor-Persoon, Courtenay-Ball, Harper-Jonas, 3 fights in 3 weeks. Arguably fight of the night on all 3 shows. I thought Jonas won. I thought, you know, if you score it round by round, which you have to, which is how boxing is scored, it was close. It was close, you know. Terry won a lot of the rounds by not really doing much. But Jonas, over 10 rounds overall, was by far the better fighter. I thought, you know, she looked brilliant. She all about the years. I remember watching Tasha spar on the GB when I was sparring Joshua back in the day, and she was fantastic. And she rolled back the years. I thought Gallagher did a good job. Game plan was good, and I thought she deserved to win. But I'm sure she'll get another opportunity now. I thought they would team up the Katie Taylor-Jonas fight with her being back on the pay-per-view card when the white box Povetkin. So I think we'll see Taylor and Jonas.
Before we see a rematch?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see Terry and Tasha again. I think we'll see Katie Taylor-Jonas, and obviously Terry's now going to fight Thunders, I believe it is. And I don't think we'll see the rematch now. I think them 2 fights that I've just said, I think they'll be the next 2 fights for both women.
What did you make of Katie Taylor versus Taylor-Persoon?
I thought Persoon won again, and a lot of people disagreed with me. A lot of people thought Terry won the fight against Jonas. I thought Rachel Ball beat Shannon Courtenay. And as I was saying, them 3 fights, the ways I saw all 3 fights going, lots of people would argue that all 3 were different way around, you know. So there was all 3 fights were pretty close. But for me, I thought Persoon won. I thought she outworked Katie Taylor. She's a very strong woman, unbelievably physically strong. And Katie was outboxing her at times and landing the cleaner shots. But for me, if you're landing 3 shots out of 15 and they're nice quality shots, that's great. But if you're landing 10 out of 100, you're still landing 7 more shots. And that's the way I believe boxing should be scored.
I think it's kind of indicative of the strength of women's boxing at the minute that the first kind of talking point that we've got to here is about women's boxing. Terry Harper versus Tasha Jonas. You mentioned Rachel Ball versus Shannon Courtenay. I also stayed up to watch Jess McCaskill beat Cecilia Breakhouse, obviously long reigning welterweight queen. Female boxing in a fantastic place at the minute. I can't remember it being in such a purple patch. I mean, seemingly week after week there was another fight that was high quality, high drama, whatever you want to call it, but also having the talking points as well.
Yeah, you know, when women's boxing was first, when Katie Taylor burst onto the scene, for me, I know Jane Couch was the woman that in Britain that brought professional boxing to these shows, but I was negative about it. Not negative, but I was unsure. I wasn't a massive fan of it. Watching Katie Taylor, I thought, right, she's really good, but she's only one. You know, you see the rest of them, you think the quality wasn't great. You know, I then saw Terry Harper in the gym, then started watching her fight and thought, right, she's very good. Then seeing Savannah Marshall, Chantel Cameron, then you're watching Clester Shields over in America. I've missed probably a few, Tasha Jonas, I missed a few out. These women are exceptional. Harper and Jonas was as good a fight as I see anywhere. And not just in terms of the effort, because Shannon Courtenay and Rachel Ball wasn't high in terms of... it wasn't like watching McCallum and James Toney. but the effort level was unbelievable. But watching Harper and Jonas, that the skill level that Jonas was showing was as good as any fight you'll see anywhere. You know, and I know they say it's not women's boxing, but it is women's boxing. It's women's boxing, it's men's boxing. And the women, for me, I know when I watch women's boxing now, I'm going to see a great fight. I can't remember the last fight I saw that involved two women that was a bad fight. I genuinely can't remember one.
Yeah, and I think like I'm of a similar kind of mindset in the sense of I didn't really follow women's boxing too much because the depth wasn't really necessarily there in the divisions, and obviously there's an awful lot for us to kind of contend with anyway in kind of the men's boxing scene. But it's got to a point where it's really not that we intentionally would ignore it, but it got to a point where it's impossible to ignore. As I say, we're seeing these high quality fights or highly competitive fights that maybe aren't sort of the quality of a, maybe not Breakhouse McCaskill, because McCaskill was very, very dogged. But as you mentioned, Terry Harper and Tasha Jonas, really high skill level as well as a really competitive fight. I mean, we're kind of at the stage now. I mean, you've just said you don't think Harper-Jonas is going to happen again, but you could kind of throw at least two of those fights that we've seen already through Fight Cam and do like an all-female pay-per-view card, which is kind of, I mean, a year ago, 18 months ago, potentially sort of unheard of, really, or just very, very unlikely.
I remember hearing Eddie say about maybe even 6 months ago, I think it was when Katie Taylor, when she watched in Manchester and Terry Harper beat Obernoff. And he said we could see an all women's pay-per-view card. And I remember thinking, right, Ed, you know, that's a bit too much. I think you're playing it up a bit there. And now I look at it and I think, you know, Katie Taylor in a big fight, Terry in a big fight. I'm in the same village as Terry. Terry's a superstar. Like she's big news now. She's gonna be a big superstar. Terry. She's only gonna get better. Then you look like Chantel Cameron, Savannah Marshall, and I sit there and I think, would I sit and watch these in a pay-per-view card if you can get Cressida Shields against Savannah Marshall, Katie Taylor in a big fight, Terry in a big fight, Chantel Cameron? And I think, you know what? Yeah, I would. A, because they're going to be entertaining, and B, I want to see some high-level boxing. So I think he's probably right. I think we can see an women's pay-per-view card come in. And me as a big boxing fan, and also someone that was a bit of a doubter of this, how much success women's boxing would have, I'd be one of the first to sit and tune in and pay for it.
Yeah, I think it's very well said, and I certainly agree. Shout out to the women boxing. It really has been one of the few high points throughout the post-lockdown boxing.